episode of Leadership Lessons. My guest today is Brandon Porter, and we're going to talk about preview of the SBC Annual Meeting. Brandon, thank you for joining Leadership Lessons.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invitation.
Let me tell you about Brandon. Brandon Porter is the Associate Vice President for Convention News at the SBC Executive Committee. Among his responsibilities, he is the editor of Baptist Press. Prior to joining the Executive Committee, Brandon was the Communications Director for the Kentucky Baptist Convention. In fact, he helped start this Leadership Lessons platform. He's pastored in Kentucky and Alabama since 1994. He and his wife, Monica, have 5 children. They live in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and are members of Forest Park Baptist Church, where Brandon serves as a lay pastor. So, Brandon, let's jump into these questions. We love to ask guests how you came to know Jesus and about your call to ministry. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Very blessed to grow up in a Christian home with parents who love the Lord, who love the local church. Made sure that was a priority, not only in their lives, but in our family's life. And so it was just, I grew up hearing the gospel. And at a very young age, at 5 years old, it was in January of 1979, I can remember it very vividly, of God saving me and my grandfather leading me to Christ and my parents being right there, sitting across the table from them. And that's something I've never doubted over these years. And so just very grateful for that influence that they have invested in me all these years. Certainly lots of others along the way. Call to ministry came when I was 12, so I was very young. I was at a church camp in Somerset, Camp Canaan in Somerset, Kentucky, and I just really sensed the Lord calling me that night to full-time ministry, and it's been a journey, led in a lot of different directions, but He's been faithful through them all.
Brandon, I don't remember anything from 5 years old. It's amazing that you remember that experience so vividly
Absolutely.
and clearly. I love that story.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been a pastor, a journalist, you've been communications director for KBC. By the way, thank you for your service for the Kentucky Baptist Convention. We're grateful for you.
Absolutely.
You did a great job in that role.
Thank you.
When Ronnie Floyd reached out about you coming to the executive committee, we hate to lose you, but we're also glad to send you out into this next role. So thank you for your ministry there. So you mentioned a lot of things. I'm familiar with some of your ministry here in Kentucky. You were in Glasgow for a while, and you've done more work really than is even mentioned here. Folks have no idea that you have more of a background in journalism and communications. How has all of that shaped you for the role that you're in now? How's the Lord used all that together?
Yeah, so from the Lord has really had 2 tracks that ran throughout life. One was a journalism track, one was a ministry track, and it sort of didn't make sense to me over the years why both of those tracks, why one of them didn't go away and one merged, sort of emerge as the lead track, but they didn't. And so in pastoring, in small towns, in rural communities, or pastoring in a larger town, different sized churches. I mean, the Lord was using that experience, but He was always keeping my hand to the keyboard, writing an article, writing an op-ed piece, things like that. Well, in 2017, He brought those things together when I had the opportunity to come there to the Kentucky Baptist Convention, and specifically in that, those 2 contexts, to help leading in Kentucky today and being a part of that team. Just a wonderful experience there with the good folks who serve Kentucky Baptist every day, and that just continues, and it drives what we do at Baptist Press. Very similar to have that high journalistic expectation, but then also know that we're serving pastors, that we're serving churches, that here at Baptist Press we're serving Southern Baptist, and so now it's amazing to see the Lord's faithfulness of these 2 roads that ran together, and I didn't know why, but He did, and then he laid them right on top of each other.
Yeah, that's a great story. And God's behind all that, putting it all together. And you couldn't do the work you do at Baptist Press as well as you do it apart from your ministry background and your
That's right.
experience as a pastor.
Absolutely.
When you're talking to pastors, you're relating to them as a fellow pastor. So part of your role, as was mentioned, is you're editor of Baptist Press. Tell us about how Baptist Press is involved in informing Southern Baptists about just larger issues, the staff, how many people are on staff, how many articles do you all produce, fresh articles, things like that. Just any simple facts that we should know about Baptist Press and its role.
Absolutely. So Baptist Press has been around for 76 years. We have a staff with 2 full-time writers, and then there's a managing editor, Laura Erlinson, and me. So Diana Chandler and Scott Barkley are our 2 full-time writers.
Okay.
And our aim is 5 to 7 pieces out in our afternoon email every day. Some of those come from the SBC entity. Sometimes we'll use things from the states, like a Kentucky Today story. But we try to have 1 to 2 pieces that we have generated in-house here every single day. And so that means that our reporters are writing 3 to 5 stories a week, which is pretty unheard of in the world of journalism. And so they are some hardworking folks that the Lord has blessed us to have here on this Baptist Press team. As far as what we do, in 1991, it had been worked through a few times, but the latest revision to the Baptist Press guidelines came in 1991. And so they're on our website at baptistpress.com. They hang here in my office. They hang out in the hallway just outside my door, so that we can be reminded. And there are a number of those guidelines, but this is the one that really strikes the closest to home for me that I come back to. And here's what it says. Baptist Press will be alert to the needs of Baptists to fulfill their roles as a priesthood of believers who must have adequate information about the issues and developments of the day to function thoughtfully and prayerfully in a democratic fellowship of faith. And so that drives us, that motivates us in the stories that we pursue to write, and then it motivates us in the way that we write those stories.
So you serve Southern Baptists, so you're trying to help Southern Baptists.
Absolutely.
You report on the entities, but you serve Southern Baptists and trying to help Southern Baptists have the facts they need to make decisions and to think through various matters. It's a great purpose. SBC Annual Meeting is coming up. There are 6 known president candidates at this point. There may be more time we get there. How unusual is that to have 6 candidates? And then the follow up is, what has Baptist Press done to help inform Southern Baptists about who these candidates are?
Yeah, so it's rare, but it's not unprecedented. In 2008, there were 6 candidates, and Johnny Hunt actually won on a first ballot election.
Wow.
Of those candidates. That's right. So it's been a few years, but it's not unprecedented. What happens when we either learn of a candidate who's going to be nominated, or one of the state papers writes a story about that candidate? Then we grab that. So if it's ours, we do the interviews, we do the work, we include the cooperative program information they're giving to Southern Baptist causes. It's in that story. And so those happen, really starting after Christmas. So from January until April, early May, something like that, folks we're learning who's going to be nominated. And we do those stories for the president, the first vice president, second vice president, for the registration secretary and the recording secretary. So we have stories on everything that we know on each of those positions. We have them at Baptist Press. Then we take those presidential candidates and we reach out to them and we set up an interview. And what we've done this year, what we did last year, was we do a video interview. And that video interview in its entirety, it's not been edited. The content has not been edited. We add an intro and outro, but that's it. And it's at our YouTube channel, and so folks can watch that video. And then we write a story based on that video, and that's at Baptist Press, and those stories have come out. And so just last Friday, that we finished the 6th one, which was on Bruce Frank. And so those 6 known candidates, we have a story and a video interview for each of them ready for folks.
Okay, so you're working hard to alert Southern Baptists. These are the people. Unbiased in your reporting. It's your choice who you vote for, but you should know some things about them. Same questions, I suppose, are being asked of each candidate.
Brandon, right. We develop a template. Yep, absolutely.
The executive committee is responsible for planning and executing the annual meeting. I suppose that's a pretty big deal. Tell us about how big a deal that is and what's involved. How long does it take, and anything like that?
Yeah, it's really it's a year-round project, even beyond a year-round. So, I mean, there are some little small things happening to get ready for Dallas in 2025 already. But our staff, the executive committee staff, is about 21 people. And I would say just about everyone on the executive committee staff plays some role in helping us get ready for the annual meeting. And so it really is, it tightens up. In February and March, I mean, it really locks in, but there are things happening all the time to try to prepare for that annual meeting. As we think about the main sessions, those ancillary sessions, or, the luncheons and the dinners and all kinds of events like that, the pastors conference, the exhibit hall, the Baptist Press coverage. It takes all hands touching it for at least a year usually more than that.
So how crazy is it when there's a microphone problem like there was? Was that last year in New Orleans or was it Anaheim? How
Uh,
awful is that for you all when you've tried to cover all these details? Everything's been tested, and then you go live and something like that happens.
it's very stressful.
I'm sure it is. So,
So that was someone in a shoe stepping on a Cat 5 cable, and it got snapped, and it took the whole system down.
wow.
And so obviously, I mean, they've covered that with tape. They
You
covered
mean
those.
it wasn't a conspiracy to keep
It
someone
was
at the microphone from asking their question?
no, I promise you, it wasn't a conspiracy.
Tongue,
And there's
tongue placed firmly in cheek when I made that statement.
yeah, there's someone here at the executive committee who can very much tell you it was not a conspiracy theory. It was a broken cable.
It was a
So,
person with a cable.
yeah,
All right,
yeah,
so there's going to be a Tuesday evening session this year. That's
yes.
new. Why is that needed? Why do we have to have that extra time?
Absolutely. So I would turn to President Bart Barber for the answer on that. And everywhere I've heard him speak about that, the reason he gives is because he wants to give messengers plenty of time for them to ask questions, for discussion. And with the amount of business that we've had over the last few years and in anticipation of what's coming in Indianapolis, he felt like we needed that Tuesday evening session to give folks plenty of time to come to those microphones that we hope and pray will be working the entire time.
I'm sure you do. We all do, and that fits who he is as a person. He wants to be thorough in communication. He wants to exhaust the question to the point where it's like, okay, everybody has made up their mind now. You're informed, and now let's cast our votes. I think
Absolutely.
that fits who he is. What are some
Yeah.
of the key issues that messengers should be prepared to decide on this year?
Yeah. So, obviously we've had some task forces at work this last year. The Abuse Reform Implementation Task Force has continued their work over the last couple of years. They're going to bring some ministry resources, we believe. The cooperative group is that they have already published not only their report, but their recommendations are already available, and folks can take a read there. So that will be something to speak into and potentially vote on. The Great Commission Evaluation Task Force has done their work. They have released the report, and we're waiting just any day for them to send the recommendations that they're going to bring to messengers. So there will be that. The resolutions, we always have resolutions, and that process is actually a little different this year. The Resolutions Committee is actually meeting this week because they're working to get those resolutions in a preliminary form to messengers 10 days before the annual meeting.
Good.
And so we'll have those. And then there's the law amendment. And folks have probably heard of that and read about that quite a bit. So those are the top of mind things. Obviously, all the offices that will be voted on, and you just never know what else might happen there from the floor.
I think it has potential to be an exciting gathering. Choosing a new president, that's always important. Some of these other matters. I'm kind of excited to hear about some of these reports a little more. I've read some summaries of them and a little deeper on a couple of them. Are you familiar with any of the recommendations off the top of your head from any of the task force? I think you mentioned that the Great Commission evaluation one, have their recommendations not been released yet?
They've not. No,
Okay.
no. They just released their report earlier last week, and then those are coming over the next 2 weeks, something like that, as we're recording this. And so Jay Atkins is planning to get those released. I think they've got one more follow-up meeting. So those recommendations are coming soon. The cooperation group, as I look at their recommendations, really two things stand out. That these are the two themes that they're aiming at. Is first trying to clarify what it means to cooperate in the SBC, and then also how to promote cooperation in the SBC. And I'm sure there are other things that folks will read and see there as they dig into those, but those are the two words that I would see. As far as the ARITF goes, I don't know that they're bringing recommendations. I just don't know. I know that ministry toolkit, and then in February here at the EC meeting, they talked about the nonprofit group that was being founded or started, and the Abuse Response Commission, and I'm not sure what we haven't heard from them directly on that just yet.
And that announcement of a nonprofit group, which was, I think Southern Baptists would kind of generally agree that's a fine thing to do, but that's not at this point a Southern Baptist function. That's a group deciding to offer a service that Southern Baptists could choose to be part of or not be part of.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, a lot to cover and a lot to talk about.
Hmm.
So each year there's an IMB sending missionary, which I'm not necessarily a weeper, but at some point in that thing, it just for the first one I've been to the one I was at this year in Phoenix in February,
Hmm.
they're just emotionally moving to think about those men and women
Absolutely.
answering God's call, going to a place that is going to become their new home. And some of those places are very, very challenging. But why is that especially meaningful to you, Brandon, and
Yeah.
especially this year?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So last week, IMB, their trustees met and they recommended 83 missionaries. So I think that's a little bit of the reason that we need some extra time because that sending ceremony needs to cover 83 missionaries in it. So praise God that that's going to take us a little bit of time to get through that. For us, for me and Monica, my wife especially, it is just so important to us because we actually have two of those missionaries from our church
Oh
in
well.
Bowling Green,
Yeah.
from Forest Park. And so as we've talked about it, I don't remember ever having missionaries from the church where we are members being, a part of that sending ceremony. And so our church is really excited about it. We're excited about it. I'm looking forward to being there to celebrate. And I agree with you. There probably some tears shed that day. So,
Brandon, everything we do is the servant to the church. What
hmm.
you do, you're a servant to the church through your reporting work and leadership
Hmm.
work at Baptist Press. And the International Mission Board, we're not a servant to the International Mission Board. The International Mission Board is a servant to the church and providing
Yeah.
the mechanism to get these missionaries from Forest Park Church to the
Hmm.
mission field where they're trying to go. So I went to the gathering in Phoenix. Connie and I did this year in February. We were there for another meeting and got to go participate in that. And what moved me the most was there were, I think, four missionary couples from Kentucky Baptist churches, but the
Hmm.
leaders that came from those churches to Phoenix were there. I'm walking around saying hi to people and say, well, there's Ricky Cunningham from Hardin,
Hmm.
and there's Hagan York and another staff member from Porter, and then Rodney Lynch's daughter was being commissioned, and so
Hmm.
it was just an incredible gathering,
Absolutely.
and that's who Southern Baptists are. These are our missionaries. We love them, and we want to go send them out and fund them and take care of them while they're on the mission
Yeah.
field. That's an
Yeah.
exciting and moving time.
Absolutely.
Congratulations to you all. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, our pastors at Forest Park, we've been texting today. I mean, and it's been ongoing, but even today, texting about how can we send them well.
Yeah.
And so, ways that the church can get behind them and know that we've got their back. And so, yeah, absolutely, it's the church's sending missionaries.
And then figuring out how to take care of them while they're on the field and
That's right.
keep up with them because that's not going to be easy. Every ministry
Hmm.
position you served in has had a high element of pain attached to it.
Absolutely.
Same's going to be true for them, even while they're
Yeah.
answering God's call. They'll
Absolutely.
need a lot of support beyond financial support. Well, so
Yeah.
Pastors Conference is going on with the annual meeting. So tell us about this year's
Mhm.
Pastors Conference.
Yeah, I tell you what, if you like some good preaching, I think that's the place to be. Stephen Rummage has put together a wonderful assembly of pastors, and they are and preachers, and they're focused on God's faithfulness to us, which I think is just the refreshment that pastors and preachers need when they come to the pastors conference, and then also an exhortation to be faithful to the Lord, and so to be built up and to be strengthened. And I tell you what, you ought to go check out the list of pastors and preachers that are coming to this year's pastors conference. Adam Dooley, Steve Gaines, Jack Graham, James Noble, Bartholomew Orr, Jimmy Scroggins,
Wow.
Greg Mann, Shane Pruitt, Robert Smith Jr.,
Oh yeah.
Benny Wong, and Herschel York.
Wow.
Great Kentucky. Well, he he just seems like he's always going to be a Kentucky Baptist pastor in
He
my
is.
heart,
That's
even if
right.
he's a retired Kentucky Baptist pastor. That's
He,
right.
he's still a
So
professor at Southern Seminary, and
that's right.
he's one of the best preachers in America. It's just all there is
Absolutely.
to it. Well,
Yeah.
that's a great time and good preaching, and it's fun to. Last year, I slipped into the pastors' conference from having been somewhere else, kind of stood in the back and just looked around that room, and I thought, man, these are pastors here listening to pastors. They're being ministered to and cared for. Those guys just came
Hmm.
off from their church field to be at a time in New Orleans. So regardless of what happens through the SBC's business meeting, these guys
Hmm.
are cared for and ministered to through the pastors conference. What an important time. So we also have
Absolutely.
crossover Indianapolis, a big evangelism outreach. What can you tell us about that and how Kentucky Baptists could be involved?
Yeah. So first of all, I would say to our neighbors to the north in Indianapolis, thank you for your work there. They have been working with the North American Mission Board And the folks in Indiana have been working hard to make this year's crossover event just a tremendous event. And so if folks want to learn about that, they can go to nam.net/crossover. That's where the information is. That's where the registration is. But there are events that you can bring folks from your church to serve in day camps, in sports camps, in compassion ministry, in block parties, and there are other things. And so if you'll go to that nam.net/crossover, I think you'll be impressed with all the opportunities, and folks from your church can find somewhere to serve and to plug into that.
Indianapolis is a great city. Connie and I met
Mm-hmm.
there, and I lived there about 3 years, and then we married after living there. But man, Indy's a great city and a good place to be. Downtown
Mm-hmm.
Indianapolis is a great place for a conference. So Brandon, with everything that's going on and so many things happening around the annual meeting, for those who are attending, messengers, voting on different things at different times, how can they best stay informed about what's happening during the various hours or blocks of time
Mm-hmm.
at the annual meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. I would recommend two ways. First, and we put a lot of effort and intention into these resources. So the first is the SBC Annual Meeting app. You can find everything that you need to know about what's happening in the room, around the room, in that convention center, in the exhibit hall, the resources that you need to be informed to make the decisions that you want to make. It's in that SBC Annual Meeting app. The second thing is to get the Baptist Press app. And so we're working hard during annual meeting to push out stories as quickly as we can. We really want to serve messengers. We want to serve the wider Southern Baptist community who maybe is not in Indianapolis, but we're specifically thinking about the messengers during those days while we're in Indy and trying to get those stories to you that are going to help you to stay informed. And so that's coming through the Baptist Press app. So those are two things that you want to put on your phone or your tablet.
Great resources. So this will be
Mm-hmm.
the first annual meeting for your new boss, President and
Will.
CEO Jeff Orge. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
exciting for him and for you. How can Kentucky Baptists? You've been around him a little bit, and man,
Yeah,
we love Dr. Orge and have a lot of
absolutely.
confidence in his leadership. He's a proven leader, and think he can
Yeah.
help us in this season. How should we be praying for Jeff as he gets started in this new role?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you how I've been praying for him, and that is for clarity and for wisdom, because this annual meeting, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of important issues. Folks will come to him with questions, but he's also, it's something to get up in front of that number of folks and to remain focused and on point and say what you want to say and do it in a very God honoring way.
That's right.
And so in his preparation and then during that time in Indianapolis, I've been praying that the Lord would give him clarity and that God would give him wisdom in all that he does to lead and to serve.
Great prayer. And anybody that gets served alongside Jeff Orge is going to be blessed. He's going to bless your life, and it's going to help
Yeah.
shape you as a leader. So, Brandon, I was really careful to get through these questions. And I have a last one, but before I get to the last one, I have a couple more.
Okay.
I want to talk about the painful side of leadership. So, your new boss has written a book called The Pain, I think, Leadership Pain, or the
Yeah.
painful side of leadership. And it
Yeah.
talks about the role of how pain shapes us as leaders. I'm not asking you to share any specific pain, but how would you relate to that idea of pain being part of your sanctification as a leader, of God using even painful experiences, ministry or otherwise, to help get you to be where you are right now?
I would say the number one thing that comes to mind is that it teaches us, pain almost commands us, if we're going to remain faithful, to draw near to God.
Yep.
It pulls us close to Him, whether that's physical pain or emotional pain. The leader, the pastor who wants to remain faithful, you've got to just get right up under his wing there and draw near to him. And I find that's it's sustaining. It's where wisdom comes from. It's where the Lord. I know that He loves me, that He cares for me, and so when He's correcting me, because some of the problems in leadership are of my doing.
Absolutely.
I've said and done things that are not right and not pleasing to Him, not helpful to others.
Yep.
But so that Hebrews, it's out of love that He disciplines His child. That you learn that through that pain. But it's that nearness that allows that, lets us put our guard down with Him and to learn that, and then hopefully go out and serve others well,
Yeah.
as you grow and learn from that.
2 Corinthians 1. I mean, the comfort that God gives you is your platform for helping other people.
Absolutely.
All right, so here's the
Yeah.
second one.
Okay.
You're in a role that receives a fair amount of criticism.
Mhm.
Folks love some of the stories that you run and love your take on them, and others don't love those stories. Some even think that you're up to something by running
Mhm.
something or not running something. How have you learned to handle criticism? Spoken or unspoken, you know it's out there, you know it's on social media. How have you personally grown in that area in your
Yeah.
leadership life?
Yeah. So first, it's really hard, and I would not. It's a regular daily challenge. It is tough. Um, And so I think probably the answer I would give is to do my best to not take it personal.
Mm-hmm.
That there was an editor of Baptist Press before I came,
Mm-hmm.
and there will be an editor of Baptist Press when
Amen.
I leave.
Amen, brother.
And people will shoot at them on Twitter or X or whatever it's called then,
Yep.
just like they do the person who's sitting in the chair right now.
Yeah.
And so it's humbling to think of that I'm just an instrument in God's hands for this season in this role. And so don't get prideful.
Yep.
Don't get overly discouraged in that, when it comes, because it's really not as personal as it feels, even though
So
it does feel personal.
I mean,
It's
you're
not
describing
quite
First
that
Corinthians
personal.
4, verse 2. It's required of stewards that a man be found faithful. But you're also describing a person for whom the idol of leadership has had to die. If you're at a
Mm.
place where you're realizing, look, I'm here for a season. This is a role I'm
Yeah,
called to. I'm going to serve as faithfully as I can while I'm here. This is not my life. This ministry is not my life. It's a work
yeah,
that I'm doing right now. That's a pretty
yeah,
healthy perspective. And that fight, I think even sometimes that criticism can help fight against the ministry idol of idolizing the work and it becoming too prominent in our lives. All right.
yeah.
So cynicism. Speak to that guy just for a second, who is really anti-SBC. I'm not talking about the guy who has concerns. I want to speak about him too. But the guy who, it seems like there are some people who just kind of want to blow the whole thing up. I'm not mentioning the people who have genuine concerns about SBC life, trust issues, etc. But what do you say about that person who is just cynical about anything SBC? Any thoughts there?
In a very gracious and kind way. Again, people can be hurt. Maybe something has happened to them that has caused that,
Mm-hmm.
and so I want to be understanding of that, and not negate that whatsoever.
Yep.
But what I can speak of here, so like at the executive committee, what I can speak of is these folks love the Lord and they love the local church and they're here to serve. The vast majority of the people on the staff of the executive committee serve in their church in very specific ways, whether that's as a deacon or as a worship leader or as in children's ministry or in some kind of a Sunday school teaching role, that sort of thing, a small group leader. And so folks love the local church and they want to see God glorified, the church strengthened, and the mission of the Great Commission accomplished. And I people hurt other people. People get disappointed. I totally understand that. That just goes with anytime it gets outside of me. There's a risk that I'm going to get hurt, and I'm going to disappoint myself, even if it's just me.
Yep.
But I can tell you that the folks that I interact with daily love the Lord. They love the work that He's called us to do.
And then the folks that just have concerns, they just see something or read something and it stirs up a concern. How do you help them to stay engaged and get the answers that they need? Even if the answer is not a good answer, then how can they begin to try and enact change in an area where they have concern?
Yeah, I would say first, keep asking,
Yep.
and when you reach out to ask, be careful of your tone, be careful of how you ask. The person that you talk to first may or may not have any idea of what you're talking about, and they may not have any influence over it whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so you can be kind and gracious to them and share your concern and ask them if you can help me get to the person who could help me.
Hmm.
And then just graciously, kindly be persistent in that. And 9 times out of 10, folks can get an answer. I mean,
Hmm.
during the interim season, I was serving as the VP for communications. The Office for Convention Relations emails were coming to me. Uh, the young lady who helps and we did our best to answer every single one of those emails. Jonathan Howell, who's back in it now, he does his very best to answer those emails. So we want to help. We want to serve. Sometimes we run into a dead end and we're not sure where to go at this point. But trust that person until they prove otherwise. Trust that they're going to try to help you.
Believe the best about other people. I mean, that's 1 Corinthians 13 right there. Believe the best about others, and then just keep looking. And sometimes you can actually impact change by asking the right questions, expressing your concern in an appropriate way. Brandon, last question. So you've been involved in lots of leadership positions. You're in a leadership position now. What has God used, either the most, or a person, or a book, to shape you as a leader?
Yeah, I think it's an experience. I think it's examples from other leaders, and then just conversations with leaders, and reading and listening to podcasts and things like that. But I would say a key takeaway: first of all, leaders have to lead, but servant leaders have to create an environment where people can and will follow them. And so my job as a leader is not only to lead, but it's also to serve those who are following my lead, making sure that they understand the assignment, making sure that they are equipped for the assignment, making sure that we're together on the task as we're moving forward. And so just making sure to be a servant leader the best I can, not only to those that we will impact outside where we're headed, but to those who are on the team and are coming alongside.
Well, you did a good job with that when you were at KBC, and I know you're doing a good job with it now. Brandon, thank you for your ministry, for your role, for your family, for you're a lay pastor, lay elder at the church where you serve. Thank you for your ministry there, sending out missionaries, and thank you for taking time to join Leadership Lessons. We're grateful for you.
Well, thank you so much. So appreciate you all and all the great work that's going on in Kentucky.